The Kethvar warship Death's Shadow moved through space like a massive predator stalking its prey. Commander Vector pressed his obsidian claws against the viewing panel, watching the dying world below. Orange flames consumed entire continents, while his hunting fleet circled overhead like vultures. The screams of the planet's final survivors had gone silent hours ago. "Status report," Vector growled, his voice carrying the authority of 3 millennia of conquest. Lieutenant Zachmore approached with measured steps, his own 12-foot frame dwarfed by his commander's presence. "The Veltani homeworld is completely pacified, Commander. Their capital cities are ash, their military destroyed. We've harvested approximately 2 million specimens for the feeding chambers." Vector's mandibles clicked in approval. The Veltani had been a proud species once, masters of crystal technology and energy manipulation. They had ruled 17 star systems and commanded fleets that could crack moons in half. Now they were nothing but protein stores in the cargo holds below. "That makes 47 civilizations eliminated this cycle," Zachmore continued, consulting his datapad. "The Council of Elders will be pleased with our efficiency." The bridge of the Death's Shadow hummed with deadly purpose. Kethvar warriors moved between weapon stations and tactical displays, their movements precise and calculated. Each one stood over 11 feet tall, their bodies evolved for perfect killing. Razor-sharp claws could slice through steel, their acidic saliva could dissolve armor, and their pack-hunting instincts had been honed across thousands of years of galactic domination. Vector studied the tactical display showing their recent conquests. Red marks indicated extinct species, while yellow showed worlds still being processed. The galaxy belonged to the Kethvar now, as it had for 3,000 years. They were the apex predators of space, the ultimate hunters that even nightmares feared. "The Veltani fought well for prey animals," Zachmore observed. "Their crystal weapons actually wounded 3 of our hunters." "Irrelevant," Vector replied coldly. "Pain is temporary. Victory is eternal. The strong devour the weak. This is the natural order." The Kethvar philosophy was brutally simple. Mercy was weakness that got you killed. Cooperation was what prey species did when they were too pathetic to survive alone. Individual strength determined everything. The weak deserved death, and the strong deserved everything the weak once possessed. Suddenly, the communications officer's station erupted with new signals. "Commander, we're detecting transmissions from Sector 7 Alpha, previously unknown civilization, approximately 40,000 light-years from our current position." Vector's eyes gleamed with predatory interest. "Analysis?" The communications officer manipulated his controls, and holographic displays filled the bridge. "Species designation unknown, but they call themselves humans. Bipedal, approximately. 6 feet in height, no natural weapons or armor. Their technology appears primitive compared to our standards." Zachmore laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 6 feet tall? These humans are smaller than Kethvar younglings. This will be our easiest hunt yet. The tactical display showed a small blue and green world orbiting a yellow star in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. Initial scans revealed continents covered, with cities, primitive spacecraft, and billions of the soft-skinned creatures moving about their daily lives, completely unaware that death was about to find them. "Their planet shows signs of internal conflict," the scanner technician reported. "Multiple nations, different languages, various military forces, no unified planetary defense. They're completely divided." Vector's mandibles spread in what passed for a Kethvar smile. Divided prey was the easiest prey. While humans fought among themselves, the Kethvar would descend like the unstoppable force of nature they had become. "Set course for the human homeworld," Vector commanded. "Signal the hunting fleet, we feast again." Meanwhile, 40,000 light-years away on Earth, astronomer Park June was finishing his night shift at the Seoul Deep Space Observatory. The young scientist had dedicated his life to searching for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence, never imagining that intelligence might be searching for him in return. His radio telescope array suddenly exploded with activity. Signals unlike anything in the database flooded his monitors. The mathematical patterns were clearly artificial, but they didn't match any known human transmission protocols. Park June's hands trembled as he ran the signals through every analysis program available. The source was moving, traveling faster than any human spacecraft could achieve. Whatever was sending these signals was heading directly toward Earth. He immediately activated the emergency protocols, sending alerts to the global defense network, space agencies worldwide, and every major government on the planet. But as he watched the incoming trajectory calculations, Park Jun felt a chill that had nothing to do with the observatory's air conditioning. Something was coming for humanity, and he had the terrible feeling that Earth wasn't ready for what lurked in the darkness between stars. The morning sky over Seoul turned black as 30 massive HFY warships descended through Earth's atmosphere. Each vessel was the size of a city block, their hulls crackling with energy weapons that could level mountains. The ships moved in perfect formation, casting shadows that plunged entire neighborhoods into darkness. Commander Vector stood in his command center, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. His fleet had performed this same routine 47 times before. Descend, terrorize, watch the prey species panic and scatter, then begin the systematic extermination. The pattern never changed. "Initial bombardment complete, Commander," reported Zachmore. 3 major human military installations destroyed. Their primitive aircraft pose no threat to our shields. Vector nodded, observing the burning wreckage of what humans called Air Force bases. The destruction was impressive even by HFY standards. "Begin ground deployment. Send hunting packs to major population centers. Standard protocol. Eliminate military resistance first, then process civilians." But something unexpected happened as the first wave of HFY drop pods crashed into downtown Seoul. Instead of panic and chaos, human forces responded with coordinated precision that caught the alien hunters completely off guard. Major Kim Hana was leading a reconnaissance patrol when the alien pods slammed into the streets around her position. She had been a special forces officer for 8 years, but nothing had prepared her for the 12-foot monsters that emerged from the smoking craters. Their obsidian claws gleamed in the morning light, and their acidic saliva hissed as it hit the concrete. "All units, this is Bravo 7, she radioed calmly. "Contact with hostile forces confirmed. They're bigger than intelligence suggested, but they bleed just like everything else." The first HFY warrior charged her position with supernatural speed, claws extended for a killing blow. Kim Hana rolled aside and emptied her rifle magazine into the creature's torso. The bullets found gaps in its natural armor, and purple blood sprayed across the street as the alien warrior collapsed. "Weak prey," snarled another HFY, leaping over abandoned cars toward her squad. But Kim Hana's soldiers didn't scatter or flee. Instead, they formed a defensive circle, each covering the others while civilians escaped through the subway tunnels behind them. Private Park Min threw himself in front of an alien claw strike meant for a wounded comrade, taking the blow across his chest. As he fell, he managed to activate a grenade that took the HFY warrior with him. His final words were coordinates for the evacuation route. Vector watched the battle footage with growing confusion. "Lieutenant, explain to me why these humans are dying for their wounded instead of abandoning them." Zachmore studied the tactical displays, equally puzzled. "Unknown, Commander. Perhaps it's some form of mental defect. In proper predator behavior, the weak are left behind to ensure the strong survive." But the strange human tactics continued. When Kim Hana's squad became surrounded near an elementary school, she made a decision that shocked every HFY watching. Instead of fighting her way to safety, she detonated explosive charges that brought down an entire building, crushing 3 alien hunters beneath the rubble. Her sacrifice created an escape route for 300 children. "Bravo 7 is down, but the civilians are clear," came the radio report. "Package delivered successfully." Meanwhile, in the Pacific Ocean, Captain Lee Jun commanded the destroyer Sejong as part of a desperate naval operation. HFY attack craft were hunting down evacuation ships filled with refugees from the coastal cities. The alien vessels moved like predatory fish, using energy weapons that could slice through ship hulls like paper. "Captain, enemy fighters closing on evacuation convoy 7, reported his tactical officer. "They won't make it to the safe zone." Lee Jun studied the battle display. His destroyer was fast, but the refugee ships were slow and defenseless. The math was simple and brutal. All stations, prepare for intercept course. We're going to put ourselves between those fighters and the convoy. Sir, that's suicide, his executive officer protested. We can't take on 6 enemy fighters alone. We're not trying to win, Li Jun replied quietly. We're buying time. The Sejong accelerated toward the Kethavar fighters, her weapons blazing. The alien craft immediately shifted their attack from the helpless refugees to the human warship. Li Jun's destroyer absorbed hit after hit, her shields failing and hull plates melting under alien fire. Evacuation ships are clear, Captain, came the final report from his communications officer. They've reached the safe zone. Li Jun smiled as his bridge filled with smoke and sparks. His final transmission wasn't a cry for help or a plea for rescue. Instead, he calmly provided coordinates for the next wave of human defenders, ensuring the battle would continue even after his ship was gone. The Sejong exploded in a brilliant flash, taking 2 Kethavar fighters with her. But the evacuation convoy reached safety with every refugee accounted for. Back on his flagship, Vector stared at the tactical reports with something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. The humans weren't fighting like any prey species he had ever encountered. They didn't preserve their strongest fighters or abandon their weak. Instead, they seemed to draw power from protecting others, even at the cost of their own lives. 4. The first time in 3 millennia of conquest, the Kethavar advance had slowed. And somewhere deep in his predator's mind, Vector began to wonder if these humans might be more dangerous than they appeared. 3 weeks after the initial invasion, something impossible was happening. The Kethavar, who had conquered 47 civilizations without breaking stride, found themselves struggling against a species they had dismissed as weak prey. In underground bunkers across the planet, human resistance was not just surviving but growing stronger. Dr. Yoon Mina worked by the light of emergency power in a converted subway station deep beneath what used to be Seoul. Her makeshift laboratory was filled with captured Kethavar technology, alien weapons and fragments of their armor. Around her, scientists from 12 different nations worked side by side, sharing research without regard for old rivalries or national boundaries. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a holographic display showing Kethavar attack patterns. "They've used the same hunting formation for 3,000 years, pack coordination, alpha leader in front, flanking maneuvers from the sides. It's incredibly effective against most species." General Park Day studied the tactical analysis from his command post. The grizzled veteran had fought in 3 wars, but nothing had prepared him for creatures that could tear through tank armor with their bare claws. "What's their weakness, Doctor?" "They don't adapt," Yoon Mina replied, her eyes bright with discovery. "Every species they've conquered before followed the same pattern. When faced with superior force, they either surrendered or scattered. The Kethavar have never encountered organized resistance that actually grows stronger under pressure." She pulled up another display showing intercepts of Kethavar communications. Their younger warriors are starting to question their tactics. Some are even refusing direct orders to attack civilian evacuation centers. Meanwhile, in the mountains north of the city, Sergeant Cho Bin crouched behind a rocky outcropping, watching a Kethavar supply convoy navigate the narrow mountain pass. Below, his guerrilla unit was unlike any military force in history. 17-year-old Kim Tae lay beside him, a teenager who had lost his entire family in the first wave of attacks. On his other side was retired Colonel Baek Won, a 70-year-old veteran who had refused evacuation. "Remember, we're not trying to win a battle," Cho Bin whispered to his mixed group of fighters. "We're making them pay for every step they take on our world." The convoy consisted of 6 massive Kethavar transport vehicles, each one armored like a tank, and loaded with supplies for the alien forces occupying the city below. Cho Bin's unit had spent days preparing this ambush, using mining explosives, donated by local workers and weapons salvaged from destroyed military bases. "Positions," Cho Bin ordered quietly. Young Kim Tae took his place at the detonator, his hands steady despite his age. Colonel Baek Won, moving with surprising agility, for his years, positioned himself to provide covering fire. The rest of the unit spread out along the ridgeline, a mix of active soldiers, discharged veterans, and civilians who had refused to abandon their homeland. The lead HFY transport rounded the curve directly below their position. Cho Bin raised. His hand waited for the precise moment, then dropped it. Kim Tae triggered the explosives. The mountainside erupted in a controlled avalanche of rock and debris. The lead transport disappeared beneath tons of stone, while the others found themselves trapped in the narrow pass, with nowhere to maneuver. HFY warriors poured out of the remaining vehicles, roaring in fury and confusion. But instead of charging straight at the humans, something strange happened. Several of the younger HFY warriors hesitated, looking around uncertainly. They had been told that humans were cowardly prey animals who would flee at the first sign of resistance. Instead, they found themselves under attack from enemies who had chosen to fight from a position of disadvantage rather than abandon their territory. "These humans make no sense," one young HFY warrior growled to his pack leader. "Why do they keep fighting when they could escape?" The pack leader had no answer. In HFY society, self-preservation was the highest virtue. You fought only when you had overwhelming advantage, and you retreated when faced with superior force. These human tactics violated everything they understood about survival. Back in the HFY command ship, Vector interrogated captured human prisoners, trying to understand what drove their incomprehensible behavior. Private Hansol sat in the detention cell, his uniform torn and his face bloodied from the battle where he had been captured. Despite his injuries, he met Vector's gaze without flinching. "Your species confuses me," Vector admitted, his massive form looming over the human soldier. "You could have escaped when your position was overrun. Instead, you stayed to cover the retreat of wounded comrades who slowed you down. Why sacrifice yourself for the weak?" Hansol smiled through his broken teeth, a gesture that somehow seemed more threatening than submissive. "You don't understand us at all, do you? You think we're fighting to live. We're not. We're fighting so others can live." The words hit Vector like a physical blow. "That makes no logical sense. The strong survive. The weak perish. This is the natural order." "Maybe for you," Hansol replied. "But humans figured out something different a long time ago. We're stronger together than we are apart. When we protect each other, we all become stronger." Vector left the detention area deeply troubled. For 3,000 years, HFY philosophy had been simple and effective. Individual strength determined everything. The powerful took what they wanted from the weak. It had worked on every world they had conquered. But now, his youngest warriors were asking questions he couldn't answer. Why did humans seem to fight harder when protecting others? Why did their apparent weakness feel more powerful than HFY's strength? And most disturbing of all, why were some of his own warriors beginning to admire the human way of fighting? The galaxy's apex predators were discovering that some prey could bite back, and the bite was more dangerous than anyone had imagined. 6 weeks after the invasion began, something unprecedented was happening in Earth's orbit. Admiral Song Hai stood on the bridge of the carrier Incheon, watching as humanity's greatest military operation took shape around her. Ships from every nation on Earth had gathered for Operation Unity, their combined firepower aimed at the HFY fleet that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. "Status report," Admiral Song requested, her calm voice masking the magnitude of what they were attempting. "Russian nuclear submarines in position, Admiral," reported her communications officer. "American carrier groups are flanking from the east. Chinese destroyers have established the southern perimeter. European forces are holding the western approach. For the first time in human history, every military force on the planet was working together with perfect coordination. Old rivalries and political differences had been set aside in the face of extinction. The HFY had expected to face scattered, competing nations. Instead, they found themselves confronting a unified world. Dr. Yoon Mina's voice crackled over the tactical communications from her mobile command center. "Admiral, we've cracked their command frequencies. Their fleet operates on a strict hierarchy system. Take out the command ships, and the entire formation loses coordination." The breakthrough had come from studying the wreckage of destroyed HFY vessels. Each ship contained databanks with records of their previous conquests. Detailed battle. Reports spanning 3,000 years of galactic domination. Dr. Yoon Mina's international research team had worked around the clock, analyzing every piece of information. "They're creatures of habit," she had explained to the Joint Command Staff. "Same tactics, same formations, same weaknesses for 3 millennia. They've never needed to evolve because no species has ever fought back effectively." Now that knowledge was being put to deadly use. Pilot Obin sat in the cockpit of his modified interceptor, one of 50 volunteer pilots preparing for the most dangerous mission in military history. His aircraft had been stripped of everything, except engines, navigation, and the largest explosive payload they could carry. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix Leader," Obin transmitted to his fellow pilots. "Remember, we're not trying to survive this, we're trying to make it count." The squadron consisted of volunteers from air forces around the world. Each pilot had lost family members in the invasion. Each had chosen to turn their fighter into a guided missile aimed at the heart of the Kethvar command structure. "Phoenix, Leader, you are cleared for attack run," Admiral Song transmitted from the Incheon. "Good hunting." Bin's interceptor screamed toward the massive Kethvar command ship, its hull crackling with defensive energy shields. The alien vessel was 3 times the size of an aircraft carrier, bristling with weapons that could vaporize entire city blocks. But Dr. Yoon Mina's research had revealed a critical weakness. "Shield generators are located on the dorsal surface," her voice guided him through the tactical network. "Hit them simultaneously, and their defenses collapse for 30 seconds. Bin's squadron approached from 6 different angles, their timing synchronized perfectly. The Kethvar defenders, accustomed to facing scattered attacks, struggled to track multiple coordinated threats. Their weapons systems, designed for overwhelming individual targets, couldn't adapt to distributed assault tactics. "Phoenix Leader, target acquired," Bin reported, his interceptor diving toward the shield. Generator array. Enemy fire erupted around him, purple energy beams that could melt titanium, but his fellow pilots were drawing most of the defensive fire, sacrificing themselves to clear his path. "This is for Seoul," Bin whispered, and slammed his explosive-laden aircraft directly into the command ship's shield generator. The explosion created a chain reaction that rippled across the alien vessel's hull. For 30 seconds, the most powerful ship in the Kethvar fleet was completely defenseless. Human forces didn't waste the opportunity. Nuclear missiles launched from submarines struck the command ship's exposed reactor core. Railgun rounds fired. From orbital platforms punched through its armor plating. In less than a minute, the vessel that had terrorized 47 civilizations was breaking apart in Earth's orbit. "Command ship neutralized," Admiral Song reported to the Global Defense Network. "All units execute Pattern Delta. Take down their formation leaders while they're still confused." The effect on the Kethvar fleet was immediate and catastrophic. Without their command ship's coordination, the alien vessels began operating independently, using tactics that human forces had already studied and countered. Pack formations that had conquered star systems found themselves outmaneuvered by human ships working in perfect unity. Lieutenant Zachmore watched in horror from the bridge of his cruiser as another command vessel exploded under coordinated human attack. "How did they learn our tactics so quickly?" he gasped to his surviving officers. "These humans fight like they've studied us for centuries." The answer came when a daring raid captured Dr. Yoon Mina during a reconnaissance mission to a crashed Kethvar transport. Brought before Commander Vector in chains, she showed no fear despite being surrounded by 12-foot alien predators with razor-sharp claws. "You want to know how we learned to fight you?" she asked calmly, meeting Vector's surprised gaze. "We studied your own records. Every species you destroyed left behind data about your methods in their final transmissions. Archaeological sites, computer databases, even children's stories about the monsters from space." Vector's mandibles clicked in confusion. "Impossible. Those civilizations are extinct. Their knowledge died with them. Nothing ever truly dies in space," Dr. Yoon Mina explained with a slight smile. "Radio signals, data transmissions, emergency broadcasts, they travel forever. We've been listening to the galaxy's death screams for decades, learning from every species you've murdered." The revelation struck Vector like a physical blow. You knew we were coming. We knew something like you was out there. We just didn't know when you'd find us." She gestured toward the tactical displays showing the ongoing battle. "You never adapted because you never needed to. Every species you faced fought alone, desperate and scattered. But we humans, we learn from everyone, even our enemies." Outside the command ship's viewports, the Kethvar fleet was in full retreat for the first time in their recorded history. Ships that had conquered star systems fled before human vessels that should have been inferior in every way. But superior. Firepower meant nothing against opponents who understood your every weakness. Vectar faced the most difficult decision in Kethvar history. He could preserve his remaining forces and retreat to the outer galaxy, abandoning their invasion of Earth, or he could make a final stand that might mean the extinction of his entire species. The apex predators of the galaxy had finally met their match, and the hunters were about to become the hunted. The Death's Shadow drifted powerless in Earth's orbit, its massive hull scarred by human weapons and its engines dark. Commander Vectar stood on his bridge, surrounded by the wreckage of 3,000 years of galactic dominance. Through the viewport, he could see human warships closing in from all directions, their formation tight and coordinated like a pack of hunters moving in for the kill. "Commander, all weapon systems are offline," reported Lieutenant Zakmor, his voice hollow with defeat. "Engine core is critical. We have maybe 10 minutes before complete power failure." Vectar's remaining warriors gathered around him, their obsidian claws extended and ready for their final battle. In Kethvar tradition, a defeated pack leader died fighting, taking as many enemies as possible into death with him. It was the honorable way, the only way their species had known for millennia. "Prepare for boarding action," Vectar growled. "We die as Kethvar. We die as predators." But instead of the expected assault, something impossible happened. Dr. Yoon. Mina's voice filled their communications array, transmitted from the human flagship Soul's Pride. Her words were calm, measured, without the victory gloating that Vectar expected from a conquering species. "Kethvar vessels, this is Dr. Yoon Mina of the Earth Defense Coalition. We offer you peace." The bridge fell silent. Vectar's warriors looked at each other in confusion. Peace? From prey animals who had just defeated the galaxy's apex predators. Not surrender, Dr. Yoon Mina continued. Partnership. Vectar activated his communication system, his voice filled with bitter confusion. "You could destroy us easily. Our ships are crippled, our warriors wounded. Why show mercy to predators who came to devour your world?" The response came not from Dr. Yoon Mina, but from Colonel Kim Tae, commander of the human fleet. The young officer's voice carried the authority of someone who had lost everything in the war, but found something greater in its aftermath. "Because that's what makes us human," Colonel Kim Tae replied simply. "We've learned that strength isn't about who you can defeat, it's about who you choose to protect." Through the tactical displays, Vectar watched as human rescue ships approached the damaged Kethvar vessels. Instead of weapons, they carried medical supplies and repair equipment. Human engineers were preparing to board alien ships, not as conquerors but as helpers. "This makes no sense," Zakmor whispered. "They should kill us while we're helpless. It's the natural order." But young Kethvar warriors throughout the fleet were responding differently. Sub-Commander Tokvar, barely past his first century, had watched human soldiers sacrifice themselves to save alien prisoners during the final battle. The sight had shaken everything he thought he knew about strength and survival. "Perhaps," Tokvar said quietly, "the natural order isn't as natural as we believed. The human offer split the Kethvar fleet down generational lines. Older warriors, steeped in 3 millennia of predatory tradition, rejected the peace proposal outright. They powered their remaining ships and fled toward the outer galaxy, unwilling to accept that their way of life had been proven wrong. But the younger Kethvar, those who had witnessed human courage firsthand, made a different choice. They stayed, curious about a species that offered partnership to defeated enemies. Dr. Yoon Mina herself boarded the Death's Shadow, accompanied by a small diplomatic team. Vectar expected to meet his conqueror face to face. Instead, he found himself in conversation with someone who seemed genuinely interested in understanding Kethvar culture rather than destroying it. "Your species has incredible abilities," she explained during their first meeting. "Your strength, your hunting instincts, your pack coordination, these could be powerful forces for protection rather than destruction." Vector studied the small, human scientist who had helped defeat his entire civilization. "You want to turn predators into protectors?" "I want to turn enemies into allies," Dr. Yoon Mina replied. "The galaxy is vast and dangerous. There are threats out there that neither humans nor Kethvar could face alone, but together." The first joint human-Kethvar mission launched 6 months later. A distress signal from the rim world Kepler 442b had gone silent, its population of peaceful traders vanishing without explanation. The investigation team included human scientists, Kethvar warriors, and equipment from both civilizations. Commander Vector, now serving as cultural liaison, watched young Kethvar warriors working alongside human soldiers. Sub-Commander Tokvar had formed an unlikely partnership with Sergeant Park J, a human special forces operator who had lost his entire unit in the Seoul invasion. They learned from each other, Vector observed to Dr. Yoon Mina as they watched. The mixed teams training together. The humans become more tactically effective, the Kethvar become more considerate. What they found on Kepler 442b changed both species forever. An ancient automated weapon system had awakened, systematically, eliminating all life in the sector. The machine intelligence was too powerful for human technology to overcome, and too fast for Kethvar hunting tactics to catch. But working together, they found a solution. Human engineers disabled the weapons targeting systems, while Kethvar warriors used their natural abilities to reach the machine's core through passages too narrow for human soldiers. The mission succeeded because both species contributed their unique strengths. Years passed. Joint colonies spread across the outer rim, their populations learning to blend human cooperation with Kethvar individual excellence. Children of both species grew up together, creating a new culture that neither could have achieved alone. Vector became an unlikely ambassador, traveling between worlds to share the story of how the galaxy's most feared predators learned a simple truth from their intended prey. True evolution wasn't about becoming the strongest hunter or the most efficient killer. True evolution was learning when not to hunt at all. Standing on the observation deck of the Joint Research Station orbiting Alpha Centauri, Vector watched human and Kethvar children playing together in the low-gravity gardens. They laughed at the same jokes, shared the same dreams of exploring distant stars, and protected each other with the fierce loyalty that both species understood. The apex. Predators of the galaxy had finally found something worth more than conquest. They had found family. The end.